Today, we are going to clean data in Excel, but I am not going to teach you a bag of tricks. I am going to teach you a strategy. One you can repeat on any data set, whether it is 12 rows or 12,000 rows. By the end of this class, you will be able to take a file you have not seen before, work out exactly what is wrong with it, choose the right tool, and hand back something clean enough to make business decisions on. So here is the whole idea on the screen. Cleaning is a loop. Data cleaning is a loop. You protect the raw data, you audit it before you touch anything, you decide the right fix for each problem, you clean, and then you validate. Here, we have created an Excel data cleaning workflow, and we have broken down this workflow into several stages. The first stage is definitely your raw data, where you ingest your data from, right? You can get it from your workbook, you can get it from a CSV file, you can get it from a database, or from data you scrape from the web or through an API. The second stage is what? Your assessment. So the second thing after getting your data source, right? The second thing you do as an analyst cleaning data is to perform a data quality assessment. Here you profile every issue before choosing a cleaning path because it's very important. You basically check, it's usually cuts across these 6 points here, or these 6 category. That is missing values, where you have empty cells or nulls. Then you have duplicate records, where you have repeated rows that inflate counts. Then we also have incorrect data types. It can happen or it can occur. Then you have inconsistent formatting, where you have mixed case, stray spaces, varied units, or date formats that stop values from matching. You have your blank rows or columns, then outliers and errors. So you have to assess your data sets using these 6 criteria here. Okay, when you assess them, you now go ahead and document your assessment. It's very important. I'll show you that too as we progress. So depending on the size of your data set, you will perform data cleaning in Excel in 3 ways. Either by directly performing the cleaning on the worksheet there, or using Power Query GUI or Power Query M language. So this depends on the data size or the data set size, as well as whether you like to automate the data cleaning process or not. Okay, now we have put in formulas here and directed how you can use them. For instance, how you use the sort and filter and what they will do, how you use the find and replace, how you use trim, clean, substitute, and so on and so forth. So here, for using the direct Excel worksheet cleaning, you use it when you have small data sets or for quick one-time cleaning. And when you are learning Excel fundamentals, you see the automation process is very low. The skill level is for beginners. For Power Query graphic user interface, that is Power Query GUI, you can use it for medium and large data sets, or and for repeatable ETL, that is extract, transform, and load system. It's very good for business reporting, and the automation is high because using Power Query lets you record the steps that you can refresh when you add new data set to the source for the process to be repeated. Then for M language, this is where you use kind of formulas within Power Query instead of using the graphic user interface. That is, instead of clicking, right? Okay, you are going to see all, and it's best for what? Enterprise extract, transform, and load systems, advanced automation, and custom transformations. I just want to do custom transformation. So you need to be highly skilled to use the M language. So now, understanding that there is no one way in cleaning data in Excel, you can use various ways in cleaning data in Excel. And to ensure that you are properly prepared when you go for interviews, that is why we have created this. We have created this so that when you are handed a data set, you will basically understand the steps that you must use, right? it adds to your point. So this resource can be found here, right? You can see it on our resource platform. Okay, we have other resources as well. So it's going to help you to ascertain what kind of challenges you find within a data set and how you can progress in cleaning that data. So now that we have seen that, we can progress to the first cleaning exercise that we have. We have our data set here. When we clean the data set, this is what we are going to have. We are going to have it look like this. But right now, we have the raw data sets. So we are going to provide these data sets to you so that you practice as you join this. Remember to ask your question on the charts. Ask your question on the charts so that we get to answer them for you, okay, as we progress. All right. So remember, I talked about audit checks, right? When you are doing your data quality assessment, right, or your quality assessment here. So you have to indicate everything that is wrong with the data, and I'll show you how that is done. Here you see the audit checklist. You have the check that you did, where you found the challenges or the errors, where you found the issues, then what was wrong and the work you did to fix them. Okay. Now there are various ways. We have already recorded some ways here we did to fix them, right? We have done that here, but we are going to use some other ways as well, okay? So that you see that there are many more ways we can use to fix these errors, okay? One mistake beginners make is that they start correcting values directly inside the worksheet, right? Inside the original data sets, instead of making a copy. You understand? Instead of making a copy. Well, it may seem faster, but it's not considered professional because you lose the original data set and cannot track the changes you've made. So as a professional data analyst, your objective is not just to fix errors. Your objective is to create a cleaning process that is accurate, that is repeatable, and easy to audit. So let's walk through this, right? So the first step will be make a copy. To make a copy of this, so I'm going to right click on the sheet here and I will say move or copy. I'll click on move or copy. I will now say create a copy. I'll click create a copy and then click OK. So when I create a copy, I've created that copy. See sales raw 2. You can rename this into sales directly. So you can do that by either right clicking on the sheet name here and say rename, right? Or just double clicking and wipe it out to edit it. So I'll just take that raw off and hit enter. So I have sales now, right? You can see the raw data here and see the other, the ones we want to work on. So I can click, hold, and drag and move it close to sales. That's just for ordering, right? Our audit, if we look at this, we have dates, right? You can see we have mixed date formats. We have dates and timestamps. And we can see that in the date format, we have what? The year, month, and day, right? Mixed up with month, day, and year. So different format mixed here. Here in the customer ID, you can see that we have different formats, right? Here as well. In the customer here, you can see that we have formatting issues, right? We have different formats here that we'll have to deal with. The same thing in the states. You have Lagos all in caps, Lagos in proper case, Lagos in lower case, right? This will make it different when we analyze without cleaning. We have these differently. Then we have for products, you can see the for category, the same thing. We have the different telecoms, you can see, right? Lowercase, uppercase. And here on the amounts, right? On the amounts, we have what? We have a division error. We have blanks, that is null cells, right? So we will have to work on these all, okay? So what is the first thing we must do? What is the first thing we must do? So what have we done so far? We have made a copy of the raw data we have performed our quality assessment. Okay, so what we will do, you can do this even before you perform your quality assessment. That is, what you can do is just to, as easy as highlight your data set, right? Then say Control T, okay? What you want to do is to convert this to a table, okay? And the benefits of converting this to a table is that table automatically expands whenever new records are added. Formulas also automatically copy down. You don't have to copy it down. So filtering becomes easy as well. And the entire data set becomes dynamic instead of static. So it's easy to do this. Even with a table, you can easily do your quality assessment and it will be clear here. So you see, we highlighted and say Control T, right? We want to convert this to a table. And we have to check my table has header so that order, that is the first row basically will be the table header. So click OK. So you can see that already. Now with the table, quality assessment becomes very easy, right? For instance, if we check on states now, you will see here you have Lagos, right? You see you have Lagos. You see these FCT are different, right? It is clear, isn't it? You come to category, you see that I have IT and IT, telecoms and telecoms. You see that there's an issue. These telecoms mean something else, whereas it was supposed to be the same thing. If we were to aggregate this data or summarize this data, you'll see that these telecoms will have its own output and this will have its own, similar to what IT will be. So it's easy for you to see the issues. You do here, you check here, you can check here to see the same things here, okay? For the dates, you can see that as well, okay? So what we will do now is that since we have looked at our quality assessments, so for the quality assessments, before we change anything, we'll first inspect the data. A professional analyst never starts cleaning blindly. Instead, we ask questions such as, are there duplicate records? And how do you know duplicate records? You look at these records here. This record, row 5 and 6, basically have the same time, the same customer, the same state, the same product, the same category, the same quantity, the same unit price, the same amounts, right? So you look at that, the same customer ID, right? We just look at that. So are there duplicate record? Are the dates are the date consistent? We can see the dates are not consistent, right? Are the values missing or are there values missing? We have some missing values here. All right, we have some missing values there. Are the spelling inconsistent? The spellings here in the category are inconsistent. Here in the state, they are also inconsistent. Okay, let's look at product category. They're basically consistent. Yeah. Okay, are there calculation errors? There are definitely calculation errors because if we were to recalculate amounts will come from quantity multiplied by unit price. So for us to have the division error here, there's definitely a sign that we should basically check what we have here, right? We should check this amount very well to be sure that everything is right. If Excel already recognizes these entries as dates, simply select the column and change the number format to a single standard such as year, month, and day. So we have highlighted it already. So what we are going to do, we can go to Home tab. You can see this on the numbers group here, right? We click this icon, then we go to dates, right? We click on dates, okay? So we can pick a particular format that is for, like, let's look at this format now. This is year, month, and day. So let's use day, month, and year, this format here, and we click OK. So when you do that, you can see that everything has been properly adjusted. You see it, right? Everything has been fixed. Okay. So next, look at the customer ID column. We look at this customer ID column, right? Some IDs have leading zeros like 001, 002, and so on. Others are simply 3 or 8 or 3 or 8. like the customer ID 3 and the customer ID 8, right? So this is inconsistent and can create a problem when joining data sets or importing them into a database. So to standardize the ID, we'll use the text function with the format 00. This ensures every customer ID contains exactly 3 digits. So 3 becomes 003, 8 becomes 008, okay? So we will just do this. We'll say insert, we just insert a column. We'll say equals text, open parentheses. The text value, this is the value, right? Comma, the format in quotes, we'll open quotes and say 000, right? Close quotes, close parentheses, and hit enter. Now we have done this. Normally, when you impute a formula like this, it should ordinarily give you the necessary output, right? So you can see our formula is actually correct. We want to format this customer ID text in a certain way. We want it to have 3 digits, and hence we use the 3 zeros in quotes to make it maintain the text format. So you can see nothing happens, right? You could think probably it's as a result of maybe space. So if you think so, you can use string equals string, right? Open parentheses, the text inside. This formula still continues, right? And then close double parentheses. If you hit enter, if that was the case, this will have giving us the necessary output. If you try, I'm just taking you through that cycle, right? If you try clean, and this is something you will find, and this is something you will find here, right? You can see the trim, you can see the clean. Clean strips non-printable characters. So the presence of non-printable characters such as line break, control codes that may be within a text that or your data set may cause this to happen. So you could use clean, right? And see if that happens. Mind you, this is like you are using you're nesting a formula, right? Or two formulas. You see clean here is another formula. We open parentheses, use the text. Now, that did not work. So what I would suggest now is as simple as this. That means there are things within here, within the data set that was giving us issues. So what you do, just highlight your entire data set, okay? Then come to your home tab. In your home tab, come to the editing group. You see this eraser icon here. It's called clear. Click the drop down. Don't clear all. Clear all will remove all of your data. So what do? You don't clear content as well. You clear formats, okay? Go ahead and do what? Clear formats. When you clear formats, you see you have cleared the format. It's still a table anyway, right? So let's try the formula again now. We'll say equals text, right? Open parentheses. We'll pick the text we want to convert, right? It's because in the table that we have it this way. So we'll say comma. We want to enter the format. And remember, it's a text, right? And we want to bring it up as a text as well. So open quote, right? Then we want a 3 digits kind of presentation, right? Then we close the quotes, close parentheses, then hit enter. You see, now it's being imputed correctly. So in case you come across those challenges, that's why we are pointing this out to you, what you can try with the easy way out. So you may not even go ahead and try the trim and the clean. You just go ahead, clear formatting, because there may be some difficult formats that you have within that data set due to conversion, to sending, copying from databases, and so on. So that clear format doesn't take out the content of your data set, just removes some unprintable formats that you may not see. So you see why we said using a table or the professional advantage of using a table in this scenario. So if you like, you may highlight your data set. You come to the table here. You can pick different table designs as you like, so that if you must have them in that design. So let's just pick this design. Okay. Now, if we delete this customer ID, if we remove this customer ID, it's going to affect this because what we have here is what? Just formulas. Okay. So the thing you can do is to highlight, you just copy it. Okay. Right click and copy. You can still right click there and paste as what? As values. So right now, what you have are values, no longer the formulas. So we can remove this customer ID. So let's just copy this customer ID and paste it here. And then remove this customer ID. Edit this title. So we have customer ID now. So now we are going to the customer names, right? So let's inspect the customer column. You notice name like Zenith Bank. We've done that before, but let's just look at it again. We notice name like Zenith Bank here. Julius Berger, GT Bank, right? Some names are all lowercase, like Zenith Bank, Julius Berger, right? So some have inconsistent capitalization. So to clean them, we'll use trim function together with a proper function. So trim function removes unnecessary spaces, right? If you come back to our workflow, removes leading, trailing, or double spaces, keeping single space between words, okay? Then proper, what does proper do? Proper capitalizes the first letter of each word. So, however, remember that company names like GT Bank or MTN Nigeria have official brand spelling. So after using proper, we will review these names manually or maintain a lookup table containing the official spelling for each company. So if the data set is not that much, we can use search and replace them, right? In our case now, we can just use search to replace them. But let's do that. Let's add a column. We'll right click and say insert. So here we want to use clean, rather trim and proper, right? So I'll use those formulas together. I'll say equals trim to remove what? All spaces from text string, right? Open parentheses. But now I want to use proper, right? Instead of continuing that formula. So I'll open parentheses again. Now I'll impute the text. This is the address here, right? So I will now close the parentheses twice. Now the reason I'm closing two parentheses because I use two functions together here. So hit enter. You can see what happens, right? We now have Zenith Bank correct. We have Julius Berger correct, but MTN Nigeria and BUA and GT Bank, they have a particular way they are written, and they were written correctly here, right? So we'll just have to deal with them here using search and replace. As usual, let us right click and say copy. We want to paste it as value so that we can comfortably remove this customer column and just name this customer. So now what we can do here is to actually replace them so that they maintain their brand names. That is GT Bank, MTN Nigeria, BUA Group, and yeah, I think that is it. So let's just highlight this and say Control H. Control H will give us the find and replace. Control H will give us the find and replace. So we want to find what? We want to find MTN Nigeria as it's written right now, right? And replace it with what? MTN as it should be, Nigeria. Okay. So with this now, in your case, you might not see this. What you may have is this way. Okay, so what you want to do is to click options. Make sure you tick match entire cell content. The reason you match entire cell content is so that it matches the entire cell content. It doesn't just look for where M is, T is, or N is and just make up a mess of our data set. Okay. So you can leave it within the sheet by columns. You can just leave all of these. So go ahead and say replace all. You can see okay, two replacements have been done. You can see MTN Nigeria is correct now. We click OK. So the next is this GTB. So it's currently written GT Bank like this. We want it to be GT Bank like this. right? Leave it this way and say replace. You see one replacement made. So what we have next is the BUA group. So it's written currently as BUA. Let's make it, sorry, BUA group rather. Let's make it BUA as it should be. Okay. And all things remain the same, replace. So we replace that. Okay. You see now that if we go to our filter buttons, let's see, Access Bank, Airtel, BUA Group, Dangote Cement PLC, Floor Mills, GT Bank, MTN, Nestle, Seplat, Zenith Bank. So we don't have those issues. So the next now is to, okay, we have to standardize the state names. Okay. So you see that when we're doing quality assessments, we saw the Lagos in all caps, in sentence and lowercase, and the FCT issue as well. So although they refer to the same location, Excel sees them as different values. So to standardize them, we will use the trim function to remove extra spaces and the upper function to convert everything to uppercase. Then we will use the find and replace to change f.c.t into fct. Okay, so now all state names will have to follow one consistent format. Okay, to do that, we will right click here and say we insert. So we will say equals trim, right? To remove the spaces, right? So we want to use upper. Upper gives us our text content in upper cases. So we have used proper. Proper makes them in sentence case. Then upper make them uppercase, lower or lowercase. So three functions, right? So let's open parentheses and we want to pick this Lagos here. That's this cell address. And we close our parentheses twice because we use two functions, right? We hit enter. You can see all has been converted to uppercase. Now, if you ask, should we use uppercase or use proper case, or why should we use uppercase when we could use proper case and just replace this FCT by the correct uppercase FCT? Now, that is a question for you that basically depends on what you want to do, right? We could change this to proper and hit enter and have it this way. So what we'll do, what we'll just have to do is to convert this FCT. You see, it depends on what really you have in mind to do. Okay. Now we will still have to just use search and find and replace rather to replace these two. Okay. So, but you know that sometimes to use find and replace, it may not really search a formula as well because you are not searching for this thing. This is not what is here right now. It's stream proper, you see. So to make it easy for you, you just highlight it, right click to copy it, say copy, then right click in that very place and say paste as values. So we have pasted as values. Now it's no longer formulas, but the content that we see. We can highlight it and now say Control H to give us this find and replace. We want to replace these two, right? So I'll say, let's start with f.c.t and just make it FCT. So I always recommend this remains checked because you don't want to mess up your data set. Because if not, if it's in match case, what happens is that wherever it has F, wherever it finds F, it will match that case and just fix it in between those tags. So we have to know that, right? So go ahead and click replace. Let's see, find what FCT and okay, you see replace all. You see it has made that replacement. Now we want to find this FCT here. Okay, city, and then replace all. You see we have done that. So it depends if you want them to be in uppercase or this. This is an acronym for Federal Capital Territory, right? So that is why we have to do it this way. So we can remove this now. Right click and delete and change this to states instead of column 1. Now we have done that. So we want to standardize the product categories. Now, this is the category here. We want to standardize this column. Okay. Now we find values like IT all in caps, I.T, telecoms all in lowercase, and telecoms in sentence case. So again, this represents the same categories but are written differently. So let's choose one standardized naming convention. So for example, we want to use IT and telecom, right? So we have to choose, just like we did in the States, we have to choose the convention we want to use, either upper or proper, then use find and replace to replace the ones that and will not change that way. So we will say the convention here, we just have two items here, basically IT and telecom. But here now, if we were to check in the this, you see, instead of just two items rather, we are having four items. So okay. So to correct that, we can just use find and replace here directly to just replace that. Okay. So let's highlight this category. Let's say Control H. And we want to replace, sorry, I.T with IT. Okay. We have done that. And then replace these lower telecoms with this other telecom, right? So let's look for telecom. We change it to telecoms. Yes, this way. So replace all. Okay. So now we have done that easily. We see now we have actually two items as we should have, or two categories rather, as we should have. So the next now is the quantity. So we have to, if you look at the quantity, some are numbers, some are text. You can see where you have these here. You see this number cell is formatted as text, right? By an apostrophe. So we have to change this to whole numbers as they should be. So on the home tab, yeah, we click this icon to go to numbers, right? We can leave it as no decimals, that is as 0, right? Click OK. So now, usually, the common thing, right, is what we have done now. It's in numbers, formatted as numbers. You see, even if you click in this text, you see here numbers. It's formatted as numbers, right? But you see, they are still text. Sometimes this happens, right? So what we can do is let's insert in another column and just use equals clean and see what we will get. We just use this, close and hit enter. You see, we have cleaned everything. Are you seeing that? We have cleaned everything now. Okay. So if you format these as numbers, okay, so they are numbers, okay. You see now they are numbers, right? You don't have that text anymore like you have here. So let us copy this and paste it back there as values. As we've pasted it as values, you see they are all text. But I think for us to just convert them to numbers, I can come to data, come to text to column, leave it at delimited, click on next, say click on next, leave it at general there, okay, click on finish. So you see, it forced it, right? You can see we have the same numbers, actually the same numbers. It has forced this to the right numbers as we like them. So let us remove this quantity and then rename this column to quantity, hit enter. So now the thing is that I'm showing you different ways, different things you can do. Sometimes you say, oh, I tried this way and it didn't work. Now, it may work in another data set, but you have to, there are challenges that you face that you have to use higher methods or more efficient methods there to force the data to actually perform what you want it to do. Now, we have our quantity, how it should be. If you don't want these decimals, it's very easy to remove them. You come to home and you remove, this is decrease, right? Decimal, and this is increase decimal. So you just decrease the decimal there. Okay. So now, normally, we have the unit price, you have the quantity. you should be concerned because of this error here. Why do we have a division error here? This division error is gotten as a result of a division, say a failed division, say something divides by 0, you have this division error. So why do you have this division error? And you also have some challenges here. You have some blank spaces. So what I'll do is to perform another calculation here where I want to calculate quantity and unit price. That is to calculate another amount. So before even going ahead to enter the column label, or if you like, you can enter the column label. Once you do that and hit enter, the table expands. That is why I like using tables, right? Hit enter, you see that table has expanded. So the table expands horizontally and vertically. So if you add a row, it will expand as well. If you add a column, it will expand that way as well. So we'll say equals, we want to multiply quantity by what? So shift H, you give the multiplication sign by unit price. As simple as that, we hit enter and it will calculate everything. So you see where we had this error, we actually have an amount here. Where we had this blank, there's an amount because we have a quantity and we have the unit price. So, okay, I can delete this now, right? So rename this amount to, okay? So we have this now. Now, there is something very important I mentioned earlier about duplicates. Okay, you can see row 5 and 6 are indeed duplicates, but be careful on how you remove duplicates. Okay, so you will notice that order IDs, that is 1004 and 1005, yeah, this thing exactly the same information, contains exactly the same information except for the order ID. So before deleting anything, always ask the business questions. Are these truly duplicate records, or are the two legitimate orders placed by the same customer? So professionals never remove duplicate without understanding the business context. If duplicates are confirmed, Excel remove duplicates. You use the word Excel remove duplicate features. Now, this is very common, right? I just noticed that the dates have been converted to these numbers. This is very common in Excel. So these numbers, so these Excel serial numbers represents the dates, okay? So what you will do in case you have this like this way, you just need to, you see, it's now on general. You just need to go back to dates. We can just use it as short dates. You see, converted back. So it's nothing to worry about. Sometimes that just happens. And it's good that it happened here so that I show you how to do that. Remember what we talked about duplicates, right? You ask yourself the business question, right? Now, I wanted to use these dates. That is what made me notice it. Now, if you look at these dates now, these dates are indeed the same dates. So you ask yourself, is it possible that this very customer, MTN Nigeria, right, made two different orders on the same dates? Okay, because we can look at that. It was in Lagos, they actually bought router and the category was telecoms. The quantity is 12 each, the same unit price, the same. Is it that they bought these twice? So you make those decisions, all right, before you clarify, before you remove the duplicates. Now, because this is a table, we can come to duplicates and say remove duplicates. Click on remove duplicates. Now, we want to select the area where duplicates exist. You may want to say unselect all and select by yourself where duplicates, the key column for duplicates, right? You may want to do that. For instance, duplicate may be in order ID, it may be in customer ID. So you want to select your key column where duplicates will, where you will determine duplicates, okay? If you want it selected all, you skip it, select all for duplicates. But like I said, it is best to select the column for which duplicates will be marked by, okay? That is why you see most of the time where duplicates are studied, order ID, you see duplicates, customer ID, duplicates are permitted to exist within customer ID, right? and permitted to exist between customer ID, because a repeating customer, a customer can come back and you can have repeating customer basically. But the reason why we are looking at this as a duplicate is because of the entire content becoming the same. And the question, if this customer can purchase the same items, exactly the same items twice within a day. So that is what is there. So be very careful while you remove duplicates. But this is the method. This is the way you remove a duplicate. Okay, so let's select whatever we pick as our duplicates column, or column where duplicates will be marked by. When we click OK, you see now one duplicate value found and removed, because we picked that customer ID as a column to indicate a duplicate. But I have explained why you should be careful using customer ID to remove duplicates, because customer ID you can represent where you have repeated customers. So we just use that to do that here for the case of teaching you how to remove duplicates, because if we use the customer ID, indeed no duplicate record is instead here. Okay, I hope that is clear. So you can see this when we come to our clean data, you see that we have achieved the same, right? We have achieved the same. So we have successfully cleaned this data. Rather than rushing into Power Query, let's first understand what each worksheet represents. The first worksheet contains January sales transactions, right? It contains what? January sales transactions. Each of these rows represents a customer purchase. The next worksheet, which is the February raw data, contains exactly the same content as the January, just that it represents the February sales. They match as well, okay? So immediately, you should recognize something important. These three worksheets represent the same type of data collected at different points in time. This is called transactional data. So rather than storing an entire year's transaction in one worksheet, the organization exports one worksheet every month. So this is a very common business practice. Now let's look at another worksheet. This one contains customer information. This customer worksheet, right, contains customer information. Notice that the customer details are not stored in the sales transactions. Why, you may ask? Because customer information is managed by another department. So instead of repeating customer details thousands of times inside the sales table, the organization maintains one master customer list. This is called a lookup table or a dimension table. Let us start with a January table. One of the ways we could take this into Power Query is to either convert it as a table or leave it as a range. So we can do that from here. So, but one beautiful thing is that when taking the range to Power Query, it converts the table. So this is what we are going to do. We are going to highlight the range. Right? Notice I'm highlighting this as well. That is the first row, because I'll show you how to deal with that in Power Query. We're highlighting everything. Then we will go to Data tab. Then in the Get and Transform here, we'll say from table or range. Okay, from table or range. So click on from table or range. So watch what happens. It tries to convert this to a table before it goes to Power Query. I would like you to uncheck my table has headers, and I'll explain why. The idea of this, my table has headers, is to convert the first row to headers. However, our first row, we just have sales export for January 2026, right? So what happens is that it automatically converts every column that we have data within our range to column 1, column 2, column 3, because we don't have labels there. So what you will do in this case, because your first row doesn't contain what you want to convert to your header, what you are going to do is to uncheck this. But in a situation where your first row contains what you have right now in your second row here, that's your table headers, you need to check it. That is my table has headers. This way, it will treat your first row as headers instead of as part of the data set. Is that clear? Okay, so let's click OK to take this to Power Query. So this is going to open the Power Query editor. All right? You're going to see that it's going to open the Power Query editor, then launch the data. You can see what we are talking about, right? The first row here just contains the sales export. You can see column 1, column 2, column 3, it contains that. So Now, the second row is what should be our header, but now it looks as if it's part of the data. So, but we are going to deal with that. It's very important that we'll deal with that, okay? The original data is still there. Power Query has created a completely separate workspace where transformation can occur. So this is extremely important. Professional analysts rarely modify raw data directly. Instead, they preserve the original source exactly as it was received. Every cleaning activity happens inside Power Query. So this allows us to reproduce our work whenever new data arrives. Before we start cleaning, let's become familiar with the Power Query interface. On the left side of the screen is the query pane. So this is a query pane. This contains all the queries you've added. Okay, you can see our first query here is a table 1, right? And we can always rename these, right? We can always rename these into, say, we can rename that January. So this is your query pane, okay? Every data set we import into Power Query will appear here. So across the top is the ribbon. So this is the ribbon. We have 4 tabs here: Home, Transform, Add Column, and View. Okay, so this is the ribbon. All right. Then in the ribbon is where we have the tools for importing data, for transforming data, for creating calculated columns, right? To transform data, right? For creating calculated columns, merging data sets, appending data sets, managing parameters, and much more. Now look carefully at the panel to the right, this panel to the right here. This panel to the right is called, or this section is called Apply Steps. So see this apply step, right? This is where the steps are recorded. So I consider this part the heart of Power Query. Every action we perform from this point onward will be recorded automatically. So if we change a data type, Power Query records it. If we remove a duplicate, Power Query records it. If we replace value, Power Query records it. So basically, it records every step. So those steps becomes our ETL recipe. Remember, we've talked about the meaning of ETL already. So it becomes our ETL recipe. So whenever new data arrives, Power Query simply repeats every recorded steps. So this is why analysts spend time designing a good transformation process. Once the process is complete, refreshing becomes effortless, okay? Before we even start cleaning, I want to bring up the remaining data set that we have, that is for the months, right? Including the customer table. So now what many beginners will do is to load these or just create a connection. For instance, here on the home tab here, you see close and load, right? You can click on close and load. You say close and load to. If you click close and load to, it will ask you whether you want to create just a connection or so on, right? If you put it as a table, it will create a new sheet. If you click on pivot table report, it will create a pivot table report. If you click on pivot table chart, it will create a pivot table chart. But if you want to create only connection means you've connected the data, it exists there in Power Query. This is me just showing you if you mistakenly click that part. All right, so we have clicked on create connection only. So we clicked on create connection only will now allow us to actually take the other February data. Let's go and take February raw data in, shall we? So we'll do the same thing, highlight everything, just the same thing we did previously. We highlight everything. Okay, when we highlight everything, we'll now go to data from table or range as we did before. Uncheck my table has headers, then click OK. So when you do that, it opens the Power Query editor again. You see our first connection is still there, which was January, right? Let us rename this. I'll just right click and say rename. And I want to make it February, right? Hit enter. So we have February there. I will just create a connection only for February. It's already even there basically. So we create connection for February. So we have, you see our queries are connection, right? January, February. So let's go to March, highlights. Okay, let's go to March. We'll highlight it. And the reason why we are doing this, instead of just cleaning January and then showing you how to automate February and March, the reason we are doing this is also to use the opportunity to teach you how to merge tables, right? If you have several tables, how to merge them. We're also going to show you how this process is automated, right? If you have a new month, it will automate that cleaning process. Usually, if we are working on this on the decks, we'll just work on first month, then add other months up. Pick our data there. Uncheck my table has headers. We know the reason why already. So we have match there. Okay. So let us rename this and make it match. Okay. I think we have one more table to bring in. So you can see we have match there already. This is January, February, March. Let us take customer there too. Now you see that in customer, we can easily say my table has headers. Okay. Now, like I told you, you can use Control T to convert, say Control T, and check my table has headers and click OK. And then go to data and say from table or range, this will open Power Query straight up. So instead of table 4, let's rename this to customer. Now that we understand the Power Query interface, we are ready to begin preparing our data. Before we touch anything, let's pause and inspect what we have. So this is one habit that separates professional analysts from beginners. Beginners immediately start clicking buttons. Professionals first evaluate the quality of the data. Ask yourself few simple questions. Are the column names meaningful? Are the data types correct? Are there missing values? Do we have duplicate records? Are there inconsistent spellings? Do we have hidden spaces? Are numbers stored as text? Are dates recognized correctly? Only after answering these questions do we begin to make any changes. Remember, our goal is not simply to clean the data. Our goal is to build transformational process that Power Query can repeat automatically whenever new monthly data arrives. So now, asking those questions, come back to your data set and you are going to see this. You look at the dates, right? The dates are not in the right format. Look at the customer ID. The customer ID are not all in the correct format. You see, right? They're not all in the correct format. You come here to this column for the states. You see that the states are not, they have inconsistent formatting. Okay. For the region column, you can see the same thing. Then the product code, for the product code here, you can see that the product and the code were meshed together. So we have to separate those, right? The quantity again, some are text, some are numbers, you see is mixed up. The same thing with the unit price, the same with the amount, right? You can see some null values in the amount, whereas we will have been able to calculate that, okay? So let's do first things first, okay? The first thing we want to be able to achieve really, right? We want to achieve really is to make sure that we remove this first row so that it allows us, that is this row, so that it allows us to make the row 2 now row 1 and make it into our header. So what do we do? In the home tab, you will see reduce rows here. You see remove rows, right? You click on remove rows, you see remove top rows. When you click on remove top rows, you have this. You say remove top rows, right? So you have to be able to tell it the number of top rows to be removed. So we just want to remove one, right? So you put in one there and then click OK. When you do that, you see that that top row has gone. Now, but that top row has gone doesn't make our row 1 automatically the headers. You can see we still have column 1, column 2, column 3, and so on. It doesn't automatically make that, okay? So what do we want to do? We want to use the first row as header. So there are two places you can see that. Under transform here in the home tab, under transform, you can see use first row as headers. Or you can come to transform here. In transform here, you can see use first row as headers here. Okay, anyone, you can use basically anyone. So if you click the drop down, you see use first row as headers or use headers as first row. You can see you can switch. Okay. So, but what we want to do is to use first row as headers, right? So let's click that. When we do click that, you see immediately our first row became what? Our headers, instead of remaining a part of the data set. So now that we have done that, you can clearly see now, you see the order ID is one data type. You can see the data type is consistent in the order ID, that is numerical. But when you come to order date, you can see we have both numerical and what? Alphabet. That's why you can see 1, 2, 3 ABC. So mixed data type. Whereas we want it to be date, right? If we put it as date, you are going to see calendar here instead. For the customer ID, you can see the customer ID has been changed to numerical. Basically, what we want customer ID to be, we just want it to be text rather than numerical. Then the customer name are numerical, the states the same, making that okay for the data type. Regions, okay, the same. Product code, the same. Quantity, yeah, all has been changed to, you can see. Actually, most times when you import your data to Power Query, Power Query forces it to go to the data type issued, except in situations where it cannot be done. Basically, where you have some figures or some inputs that cannot be changed. Specifically in the amount here, you can see this error code here will not allow it all to be changed into numerical. That is why you have that here. The same thing with the unit price, okay? Now, if you click here, this order dates, right? If you click here on this data type, you are going to see the different data types that you can choose from. So instead of us just choosing date or date and time, we want to click on using locale. We'll click using locale, right? Then we are going to have change type locale. You see right now we have data type is text, so we want to click and select date. Okay, we click and select date. So here you have the freedom to select any date format that you're working on. Okay, so this gives you, as a data professional, you may be working for organizations that use different dates conventions. So the idea there is to make sure you use the convention that you are required to use. Okay, so we pick dates, we pick English United States for this example, then we click OK. When we click OK, you can see what happens here. Now we have an error here. It says we couldn't pass this input provided as date value. So if we look at this error, now you are going to see something very clear that could help you. Now, what you are seeing here is you have your day, month, and year. Okay. So this is different from the US locale that we have, or the USD structure here that we have month, day, and year. And because we use the US structure, it's going to fail to convert those that are in the UK or majority of Europe convention. You can see that's the reason. Most times this happens too if you just import your data to Power Query. You can see this force conversion. There is a way you can set it up so that it doesn't convert your data at all automatically. You have to work on it by yourself. Or if you ever find these issues, don't worry about these errors. You could adjust them. So what I would do is just to go back to this data type here, right? Let's pick using locale. Okay, still, I want to replace, I don't want to add a step. I just want to replace that step because I know using UK convention, I know that will convert everything clearly for me, right? So I'll use replace instead of adding a new step to the apply step. So I'm using replace. It will now come back here. It's date already, but it's error because it couldn't pass that, right? So I'm going to pick UK. I'll say English United Kingdom, right? Here, this one. So click OK. Once I do that, you see that the errors, right, have been dealt with. You can see I have no error here anymore, right? Okay. The next will be the customer ID. In the customer ID here, the customer ID is numbers already, but we want the customer IDs to be text. So we want it that way. Okay. So to the customer ID, especially in the dates, we just clicked on the data type here, right? But you could change the data type on that transform tab, right? You can see you can select the data type. Okay. All right. You can do that as well here. So we want to change the data type to text, right? When we change it to text, you see it's been converted to text. However, in our identity arrangement, we have three figures, right? So what we want to do is still select this customer ID. Under transform, you come to format, right? Click format, you see add prefix. You can add prefix, you can add suffix. Okay. So prefix is you adding a specified text value to the front of each of your value, and suffix is what? Adding specified text value to the end of each of your values. So in that column. So that means we want to add in front, right? So we need a prefix and we want it three values arrangement, right? So that means we are going to add 00. So that makes it 001, right? So say okay. So you see that gives us that arrangement. You see? So we are done with that. Then the customer name now. Something I want to show or clarify is that sometimes we have unprintable characters, spaces, and so on. What you can do is to actually trim or clean particular columns as you would like to. You can do this. You go to Format and you trim. You go to Format and you clean as well. We want to trim. Okay, we can trim this column. We can clean this column as well. The same for the states. We trim and we clean as well. So that's not the only challenge here. You see this formatting, we need to deal with this formatting, okay? So when you look at this, we have this lowercase mtn Nigeria and we have this as it should be, right? So Nestle, the same thing, okay? Let's click this drop down, we see them. So see BUA group here, BUA group here. So we just basically have to standardize these things. There are various ways you can look at this, and I will suggest you look at it in the most productive way possible. Now, if you use the search and replace, it's going to be a lot of work, and the efficiency you want to get from cleaning your data and cleaning it quickly will be, you will not get that there. So, what I want you to do to bring consistency into this the quickest way possible. When we were looking at it in the spreadsheet parts, we just use proper, right? To bring them into proper, and the easiest way was now to replace what? To replace few brands that prefer theirs being in uppercase, especially their acronyms. Okay. So now what we are going to do is let's cancel this, highlight the customer name, then we go to transform tab. From the transform tab, we want to go to format, right? The format here will help us do the same thing that we did during the first part when we were creating using formulas, right? You can see the upper, we try that. We can see capitalize each words. We can see lowercase, okay? So we want to use the capitalize each word. Remember, we already applied trim and clean. This was something we showcased with the trim function and the clean function in the spreadsheet. So we'll click on capitalize each word because we want to capitalize each word. And you can see we have successfully capitalized each word. When we filter now, you're going to see that we will have a more unified, look at it now, a more unified list, right? We have Access Bank, Airtel, BUA Group, Dangote Cement, Flour Mills, GT Bank, Julius Berger, MTN Nigeria, Nestle Nigeria, Nigerian Breweries, Seplat Energy, Zenith Bank. So you see now we have them cleaned. So the challenge basically will just be for BUA Group, for instance, that want their BUA to be all caps, for GTB to be all caps, for MTN to be all caps, right? That's just this challenge, right? You see that you have fewer issues this way instead of using find and replace, find and replace, find and replace for everything. So the manual kind of adjustment we'll do here is just to make sure we search and replace those words. Okay, we can search and replace those words. So you can do that there in replace values. On the home tab, under transform, you can see replace values. Even under transform, you can see here where you have replace values. You can click the drop down, you see replace errors in case you ever need to replace errors with something, right? But we just want to replace values. So we want to find MTN Nigeria. Let's start with MTN Nigeria. So currently MTN is written like this, Nigeria, okay? I want to replace it with what? MTN Nigeria. Okay, this is what we're replacing it with, right? So we go ahead and hit enter. You see, we have replaced that, right? So we have GTB and BUA left. So we want to replace that again. So replace values and we'll say find what GTB this way, right? That's what it currently is right now. We want to replace it with GT Bank like this. I need to replace that. We just have BUA left. Okay, so replace values. We now say we want BUA that is currently written like this, BUA group. And now we will say BUA group. This is how we want it written, right? And we say, okay. So if you check it now, everything is as we want it. You see it, right? Very simple. Now, there's something I really want to point out to you. If you want to know the apply steps where you did everything, it is possible that you rename these steps, okay? Right click on them and say rename. You can rename it. Here you replaced MTN, okay? So that is for repeatability, basically for reporting. Replace MTN Nigeria. So hit enter, you see someone will just read it and understand. Although Power Query already understands what you did, but this renaming them this way even makes you understand which step to go backward, because if you don't rename them, you may not really remember which one you did and which steps to go backward. If you want to go backward to something you did or revert something you did, what you do, you just click the X, right, to change that, to go back to one step behind. If you remove three, you're going back three steps behind. So it's very important that you, while working, rename your steps immediately. It makes sense. Okay. So let's do the same now for Lagos. If we make it sentence case, it's going to make a whole lot of sense because that is how it should be. Because right now, if you filter, you're going to see different, this Lagos is different. So it doesn't make sense that way. So what do you do? The same thing we did, right? Go to transform, go to format, and say capitalize each word. You capitalize each word and you see, sorry, format, capitalize each word. You see where we were, so let's go back to the last step so that we have a sequence under it. So transform, format, I will say capitalize each word. You see that it has clearly capitalized each word. So you basically try to make sure you look at your data very well. Look at it, and you still see some issues like the FCT .f.c.t and this FCT here. So those are the things you must address now. Those are the only ones, and we can use find and replace to or replace values to adjust that. Make sure your column is highlighted. Then under transform, replace values. Let's click on replace values, and we want to find what? We want to find f.c.t and replace it with what? With FCT. We want to do this FCT here. So that is corrected. So we want to change this FCT to the correct FCT, right? We replace values again. So we say find what FCT and replace it with FCT. That's the correct FCT and click OK. That will be all. You see that that is all and that's being corrected. So now to the region, let's look at this now. We have Southwest region, right? Look at Southwest region. Lagos is Southwest region, right? And we just the way the data was fixed or the way the data was imputed. So just imputed one for the Southwest region. Then we go to Kogi, FCT. And again, I just noticed something. FCT and Abuja here. FCT is Abuja. So we have to come back here and standardize which one we want. Do we want FCT or Abuja? Okay, we have to make do with that before we even come here. But what I was showing you here is that you see North Central covered, then Northwest, Sokoto, then South South. Instead of looking or treating this region as basically or majorly null, what we can do is to fill down this data, right? But we will do some things before we get there. We will have to remove this null because this is an entire null row, and we have an entire null column here for the notes. But let's correct these states where we have Abuja and FCT, okay? So let's choose one. Do we want FCT or do we want Abuja? We have highlighted that column, go to replace values, and we want to change Abuja to FCT, and we do that. So all Abuja will be converted to FCT now. So let's remove null rows. Now, to remove null rows, we will go to the Home tab. You see remove rows, right? Click the drop down remove rows. You can see remove blank rows. You see that, right? If we click on remove blank rows, you see that that blank row is gone. So now we have this blank column notes. It's just very easy for us to remove. We'll just right click on it and say remove, and it's gone. So now that it's gone, we can deal with our region column without any breaking. Okay, so we'll come to transform. You can see any column under the any column group, right? You see fill here. You can see fill down, fill up. So let's click on fill down. Say fill down cells value to neighboring empty cells in the currently selected column. So we want to select this column and want to fill down southwest till up to where North Central is and so on. So let's click on fill down and say fill down. You can see what it did. It picked the southwest, fill it down until where North Central started, pick North Central, filled it down until where Southwest started, pick where Northwest started. So it picked Southwest, filled it down until where North Central started, picked North Central, filled it down until where Northwest started. Did the same thing for Northwest, the same thing for Southwest. So you see, we easily just fill that up. Let's deal with our product column. On the product code column, you see that we have two kinds of basically product and the product code, right? Separated by a delimiter. This dash is a delimiter. So what we want to do is to separate this into two columns. Now, to separate this into two columns, we'll come to transform and we'll split column, right? We'll split column here, right? Click on split column. We want to split column using a delimiter, right? We'll click on by delimiter. So the delimiter there is the dash delimiter. It's supposed to pick it for you automatically, but if it doesn't, you click the drop down, either select the delimiter you can find there or select custom where you don't have it listed there and basically just click here to enter the delimiter. Now, at the split art is very important. Most times people don't cover this, but it's very important. Now, I'm teaching you this so that you can also apply to any kind of data set. That was a promise, right? And that's why you see I touch all of these things. When you split at leftmost of the delimiter, you are taking the left part of the left part of the content from the delimiter. When you split at the rightmost of the delimiter, you are taking the content of the right part of the delimiter. Let me explain that. Let's say you want to split at the leftmost part of the delimiter. What is at the left part? It's the IT you find here, isn't it? Or telecoms here. Whatever you have at the left part, that is what you are splitting out. If you split at the rightmost delimiter, what you are splitting out is what? The right part of the content you have, right? Say the scanner, the server, the printer, the text you have at the right part. So I teach this. You can use this, you can apply this to separate phone numbers from country codes and so on and so forth. So when you say at each occurrence of the delimiter, as we have here now, as is checked here, each occurrence of the delimiter, it means I want it to split anywhere you find the delimiter. So give me the right and the left, that is both right and left. So that's what we'll do, and we'll click OK. When we click OK, you see what we have, right? The left as well as the right part of it split at both sides of the delimiter. So now we can, this is the product code, right? We have the product scanner, server, and so on. So we can rename this. You can double click or right click and select rename. So this is the product code and sorry, this is the code, right? and this is the product. So we have that now. So if you check now here, just to check, you see that we have a clean products column. That is laptop, monitor, printer, router, scanner, server. So you see that we have that correct there. The challenge here now is in the code where we have the different IT written, and I think let's see telecoms, if telecoms is written. The easiest way to just basically see that is to come to the filter. Telecoms is fine. So what we have to deal with is IT, okay? So we go to find and replace values under transform. We want this IT written this way to be replaced with the correct IT and click OK. So we have that sorted out. If we come to the filter, you see that we have two categories of the correct items and we click cancel. The reason why we don't click OK, if you click OK, it's going to come here as to say a step you filter the row. That's why we say cancel because I'm showing you how to see if your cleaning has been done properly, okay, immediately. Basically a quick audit step. And what we have now is the quantity. I think the quantity is majorly fixed. Then the unit price or the quantity is fixed is correct by data type. All right, now to our unit price, we can see that we have mixed data types here, text and whole numbers. Now, I just want to show you something. The challenge here is that if we were to just change this to decimals or to whole numbers, as the case may be, whether you change to decimals, whether you change to whole number, you are still going to have these errors, the ones that couldn't be changed. So there are things we can do that experience helps us to do. So this is what we will have to do. We will have to convert these to text first. So everything will go back to text, right? So when we convert to text, you see that we don't have any issues. So we can use find and replace on text values, right? So we want to replace this Naira sign. We want to do that, okay? So on transform, we want to replace values. You can see that. So we want to find what? The Naira sign. Let's start with the comma sign. We want to replace it with nothing. So we'll leave that replace with blank and click OK. You see that the comma sign is gone. So to copy the Naira sign, I'll just copy it here, right? Control C to copy it here. You understand? Then let's highlight that back. Go to replace values. I want to find what this Naira sign I've pasted here, leaving the replace with blank, and then click OK. You see that is gone, right? So we don't have anything that is a text that will struggle with, right? The conversion or hinder the conversion. So right now, if we were to change this back to say whole number, we won't have any issue anymore. It's as simple as that, okay? So you can see that, right? It's as simple as that. All right, so now the last column for us to deal with is the amount column. But this is something I would like to share with you. Personally, I won't trust an already calculated amount column. I have the quantity, I have the unit price. As I could as well recalculate the quantity and the unit price. So I will not just be dealing with filling up the blank spaces or removing this error here. I'll just have to look at this error, right, as a sign that some of these may not be correctly computed to just compute a new amount column. To compute a new amount column, I want to add a column and new column, an additional column. So let's just go to add column to add that additional column. So, and I want to add a custom column here. Click on custom column. That will bring out this dialog, which I will have to enter the name of the custom column and then perform the calculations that I'll need to perform. So it will just be me multiplying this. So I want to call it new amount. So here on the formula, basically it's just simple arithmetic. I want to multiply the quantity, right? You can double click to enter it there or right click. So I'll just double click to enter it. I just want to multiply this by the unit price. So it's just a simple calculation, right? Quantity multiplied by unit price will give us our amount. So I'll go ahead and click OK. So once I do that, you see our new amounts have been calculated. Okay. So let me work on the data type. I just want it to be whole number. Okay, now it's whole number. So we can easily just remove this, right? You can see even where we had blank has been filled properly, where we had this error NA has been filled properly. So if we have any concerns about any concerns about correctness, we will have solved that concern. So let me remove this. Okay, I'll remove this. I right click basically and remove that. So now we have done the basic form of cleaning. So what we need to actually check out for is duplicates. We need to look out for duplicates now. It's something very important that we have to deal with. So not every repeated row is actually a duplicate. Sometimes a customer genuinely purchases the same product twice. So professional analysts never delete duplicates simply because they look similar. Always understand the business process first. If duplicates truly exist, so go to the Home tab, choose Remove Rows. So if duplicate truly exists, basically, we'll go to the Home tab, right? You see Remove Rows, right? Remove rows, you see Remove Duplicates. That is, duplicates truly exist. So Power Query removes exact duplicate records. Again, this transformation becomes part of our ETL process. So if we click on Remove Duplicates, Power Query will look for duplicates within our data sets to be removed. But it's essential that we ascertain that these are indeed duplicates that must be removed based on the business problems or the business situations or scenarios we are dealing with. I hope that is clear. So now we are basically done with this. We are basically done with this. So it will be left with the February, the March. All right, so we've successfully cleaned the January query, right? If you can check the difference, you see the difference between the January and the February queries, right? As well as the March queries, you can see the difference, right? So now, I want to show you one of the powers of Power Query. And since we have successfully cleaned January, there will be no need for us to go over exactly the same steps over and over and over again for the remaining 2 months. There are various ways we could do this. We can create a function that will do that with just a click, which we'll do in our next class, or we could use this method that I want to show you now. But this method is also quite easy, straightforward to use. So remember what we said about apply steps, that everything we have done has been recorded and Power Query records everything. And since all our month data have the same structure, the same problems, basically the same challenges, what we'll have to do is to apply the same steps just with few clicks to the other months. So I want to duplicate January, right? So I will right click on the January query and click on duplicate. So on this duplicate here now, I want to change the source of our data, right? This source of the data. I want to change it to February source. Now, recall that when we initially imported this data here to Power Query, the first one will be table one, right? Because it imports in forms of table. Remember, we say table or a range. It imports in forms of table. So January was table one, February table two, March table three. So with that in mind, what we can do is with the duplicate of January highlighted here, what we'll do now on the Home tab, you can see Advanced Editor. So we want to see in where we have these apply steps recorded, right? We can check that in the Advanced Editor. So click on Advanced Editor and you are going to see these steps, everything, basically everything we did here, right? So what we are going to do is to change this source. You see this source, right? This source is the source is excel.current workbook, right? and the name was table, that's the name of February was table 2, right? So if we change this source to table 2, what happens immediately when we click on done will be that it will take up the source for that February data and apply the cleaning steps quickly, just snappily. So let's click on done and you see what happens. You see immediately it changed. It has changed immediately. And you can see everything has been cleaned. So if you have any doubts, let me show you. If you have any doubts that we have indeed is February's data, what you will do is to come to February and check. So February has the order ID from 2001 to 2026, isn't it? Let's check this January duplicate and see. Is that not the same thing? 2001 to uh, 2036. Is that the case? 2001 to 2036, right? We look at the customer ID from 01 and how it was placed from 01 to 010, right? If you look at that, let's come to where we applied it. Customer ID 01 to 010, exactly as it is. You had 010 being the last, 0010 being the last three customer IDs. If we go to the raw February data or the unclean February data, is that the case? Look at it. We have 10, 10, 10 being the last this thing. So you check it and see that everything is applied indeed the same way. So we can as well take out this February because it's the unclean February and rename this to February. So you can just right click on this query and delete this query. Okay. Yes, click on delete to delete that query. So we have January, this January 2 is February indeed. So we can right click there and rename it as February. Okay. So you see now that we have a cleaned January. We also have a cleaned February just by changing the source to make Power Query run the same steps snappily on that data. It's like that. So you just repeat the process for March. We'll duplicate February. Okay, right click and duplicate. Then, right, the same thing now. Let's go to Advanced Editor. Match will be what? Table 3, right? So let us change that to table 3 and then click Done. When we click that, you see everything exactly as we had it in the match table. Everything will be clean. So make sure you check everything. You see everything, including the new amount we created, everything, how we removed everything. See the time we spent in determining or cleaning the first query. We don't have to spend it cleaning the other queries. We just apply the steps, okay? Just apply the steps. So I'm going to delete this match. Okay, right click and delete. Yes, we want to delete that and change. I just want to move it just to order it. Click, hold, and drag there. Right click and say rename. And I'll just change that to match as we had it. So basically, you can see all the steps applied. All of the steps applied. You see, it was match. All the dates are in match. We have no errors because we dealt with them neatly in the first instance, that is in January. January is cleaned, February is cleaned, March is cleaned. Isn't this productive? This is very productive. Okay, so now speedily we have done that. So in our next class, we are going to be learning how to convert our cleaning steps to function that we have to apply. And why is that important? That is important because imagine now they give us April, May, June, July, up to December. We don't have to come and repeat this process again. We just have to create a function that will apply to the folder and boom, cleans everything, does everything for us in one click, right? Okay, so let's look at our customer table. Let's see how our customer table looks, if we have any challenge there, right? So here is our customer table. So we have the customer ID. Now, look at this customer ID, right? From 1, it's what? It's numeric, right? numeric. The challenge will be if we're ever going to say use this table to fill up this other January, February, and March table, the customer IDs will not match. You see, the customer IDs here are text and has a particular way of presentation. So it wouldn't match. So what you will do is to ensure that you change this to the right data type, which is text. And apart from changing that, let's replace current. Apart from changing that, we have to make sure that they have the correct um, order, right? Basically, I mean like 001. Let's go to match and you see what I mean. 001 and so on. Just two zeros in front. Okay, so let's go to customer and see now. So we have four not line there, and we have this without two zeros in front. So what we can do is to just use find and replace to make sure we replace this four with 004. Okay, so we can replace values. We want to look for four. You know now it's text, right? So change it to 004, right? And then click OK. You see that has been adjusted. So if you check others now, from these digits, you have 0010, 0011, 0012. So you can use replace values to do that as well. So for the customer names are edited as we have them as the customer names here. Okay, as we have them as the customer names here, so it's okay. Then, but the challenge now is, you see, we have to actually deal with FCT here. See FCT here, this FCT. Okay, so let's replace values. So we want to look for F.C.T and replace it with FCT directly. So click OK, and we will have done that. That's the only challenge. Then here for the updated dates here that we have, so you see that this date have timestamps is because you check this here, is date and time. Okay, date and time. So you can just pick dates instead of date and time. So you just have the date. Okay, so that is done. All right. So we are heading to the last part of our objective in today's class, right? The last objective will be to learn how to append these three queries. You know, we have them as separate tables, right? As three different tables, but we'll not analyze them in three different tables, right? We want to make them into one table. So the objective here is to combine three cleaned monthly data sets into one master table without copying and pasting. What are the prerequisites? The prerequisites will be before you append, make sure all the data has been cleaned and make sure all three queries have the same column names and the same data types. You understand, right? Okay. So we have our Power Query open already. So we'll go to Home tab. Okay. On the Home tab, you can see append queries, right? You see on Combine here, you see append queries. Okay. So you can click the drop down. You see append queries or append queries as new. Let's click on append new queries. But basically, let me explain both of these. Append queries will just append these queries without leaving January, February, and March as independent queries. But append queries as new will mean that we have a new query that is different from January, February, and March. That is combining them and having them separately. So what we will do is to choose append queries as new. Okay. Okay, append query as new so that let's click append query as new. As we click append queries as new, we want to concatenate rows from two tables, that is, you pick two tables into a single table. If you pick three, you will want to concatenate what? Three tables, that is, join three rows from three or more tables into a single table. So right now we have January, right? So we can pick February and March So what I just basically did is hold my control, click on February, click on March, I'll click on add. So these three here, these are the three I want to append. Okay, these are the three I want to do what? To append. So now, once that is done, I'll click OK. All right, so it's doing it now. So you see that it has appended or combined them without any issue. And remember, we gave the prerequisites, right? We said they must have the same column names and the same structure. So you can see now it has added it clearly. January had this order ID up to 1 here, then 2 started February, then 3 started March. So we have those tables appended into a single query. So we can call this or rename this append 1 to quarter 1, right? It makes sense, right? January, February, March makes up what? Quarter 1. So we can just call it Q1 and hit enter. So we have Q1 data now, okay? So students often confuse these two operations. What are the two operations? Merge and append. So let me clarify. In append, you add rows. That means you stack one table below another. So you use it when tables have the same columns, such as monthly sales report with the same columns, right? Whereas in merge, you add columns. That is, you join related information from another table using a common key, similar to something you use in Excel, say basically XLOOKUP or VLOOKUP. Okay, we look at merging in our next class as well. So what are the two things we have promised in our next class? We've promised that we are going to create a function for cleaning. We promised that we are going to use merging for in cleaned data as well. So now we have basically done this. Remember, January, February, and March, the ones we had before, are in just as connections, right? They're just as connections there. So, but now since we are done with quarter one cleaning, we can close and load to. Okay, click close and load to so that you will see where you just select what you want. So if you want to create only connection, you click on only connection just as we did before. However, I want to click, I want it to create connection and, so let's leave it here. I want it to create connection and a table in a new worksheet. So if you say table in a new worksheet, it opens a new worksheet, imports the data there, and also still have it as part of a connection. You can see it here. So let's click OK, and we'll have our table set here in Q1. You can see it here. So it's loading. Now, look at that. Look at that, right? Isn't this very easy and interesting? You see, with this now, you can comfortably perform your analysis with all assurance that your data has been perfectly cleaned. For instance, let's filter the customer names. You can see it clean. Let's filter region. You see, we have the correct regions, code. Oh, you see somewhere telecoms is still here. That means there's something we have to correct here on telecoms. You see, you have to really check this. So now what we are going to do is to go back to our quarter one, right? Our quarter one query. If you just double click here, it will take you back to Power Query. Okay, it will take you back to Power Query in that quarter one appended query. So let's go to code and see where that telecom is coming from. You see, we have it there. So because we have it there, easily we can just work on that. Okay. So highlight it there. Let's go to home. We You can use replace values here, but we have been using the one from transform, which is the same thing, replace values. Then we want to search for telecoms or telecom and change it to telecoms. Okay, click OK, and it will apply that. Let's check to see. It has applied that there. So now it's
It's already here. So even if you don't necessarily have to come and say close and load to again. You see, it's grayed out. So even if you close this now, you say keep. Even if you close this now, all you need to do is to refresh this. You see, it will refresh. And if it doesn't refresh, you can basically refresh it manually. Come to query here, right? And say refresh. Okay, so you can do that manually if it doesn't refresh on its own. So you can see it's gone, right? So you have IT and telecoms now. That's good, right? So you check orders and make sure everything is correct as it should be. The dates column is correct. Okay, date column is correct. You can see that is correct. So, congratulations, we are done with our first cleaning class. So, see you next week, Saturday.